Hey everyone, I am Lana Sackwald from Get Lucid with Lana, and I am super excited to be connecting with you guys today for another lucidity training session. So this week's topic is something that is so important for my personal life, it's important for my business life, and I know it's a really important topic that all of you tuning in can relate to as well. And this is about how to work lucidly with relationships. All different kinds of relationships, whether that's shifting consciously with people who have been in our lives for a long time, working with social anxiety, working with different group dynamics, or just being able to be your true, authentic self and put your highest self forward in any given kind of social dynamic. Have you ever noticed that when you're constantly growing, constantly expanding, becoming new, incredible versions of your best self, but then you go back to spend the weekend with your family, or maybe you end up reconnecting with an old friend or someone from high school, how you can revert back to being that version of you from the past or the person that you were growing up. Send me an emoji if you've had this experience happen to you. Maybe you were in that like quick to anger, quick to snap back at your mom kind of girl in the past, or guy that you were in high school. Maybe you were one of those quiet kids who didn't have all the confidence back then that you do now, and you find yourself shifting back to that old blueprint, maybe a childhood blueprint that doesn't feel good for the person who you are today. It just really isn't the version of yourself that you know yourself to be where you are now. So it doesn't feel good. It's kind of weird, kind of confusing. It doesn't represent fully who you are today. So this training, I have 3 really simple steps for you guys to use that will help you rewire, rewrite this whole pattern and help you to keep your new self, your highest self, your most authentic self that you've stepped into in this present version of you, no matter who you're coming into contact with, no matter who you're connecting with, and you can say goodbye to the old versions that no longer serve you. You can just stop reverting back to them. So step 1 of this process is called Cultivating Lucid Awareness. This is where we focus on becoming really aware and conscious of particular emotions or particular triggers that are typical of those old versions of yourself. Maybe those feelings, like I was saying earlier, of being quick to anger, enticed by gossip, feeling small, shy, having low self-esteem or a low sense of worth, feeling like your mom or your sister or whoever that you need to yell at, all those old emotions that get super heightened and you know not to be true of who you actually are. So how this step works is that you'll pick the particular emotion that comes up for you, and you will set that consciously in your mind before meeting and connecting with this person or this group of people or these family members. Let's say the old trigger is being quick to anger. So you'll make a mental note to yourself, whenever I feel anger arising, I'm just going to take a moment to rank this emotion from 0 to 10, with 0 being like mild irritation and 10 being I'm gonna go into a murderous rage right now, right? Comment for me if you know already, even in your current state right now, what that kind of emotional trigger is for you when you connect to these old relationships, old friends, family members. And what this is going to do is this is going to bring you a moment of lucidity, a moment of presence to really see where you are on that scale, and therefore be conscious of the emotions that are arising, the old patterns, the old triggers, and this will give you the opportunity to start working with this, rewiring it, rewriting it. So what you then do is move into step 2 which is taking lucid action. So this is where you're now aware of where you're at on the scale, what emotion you're working with. So maybe the emotion is quick to anger, and when you're interacting with your mom or with a family member, that goes from 0 to 10, 12, 15 real quick. It's that old pattern, the blueprint that's really strong for you. So your ranking is probably around an 8 to a 10, or maybe you do fall off the scale and go from like a 12 to a 15 to a 20. So you take that moment of ranking yourself, bringing lucidity, consciousness into the situation, and the next step is then to take lucid action. And this step's gonna be a little bit different for each of us, but it's something that you can do personally to take the next best step for yourself and bring yourself back down to neutral, or even just a few pegs down on that scale. And I'm going to go through some examples that you can use or will maybe inspire you to come up with your own. And please share those if you know what they are. They might really help someone else who's tuning into this too. So for me, if I'm angry, something that will just slow me down, give me a bit of room to breathe, is just a nice warm cup of tea. Maybe something really soothing like an herbal tea, chamomile, or something like that. So at that moment of seeing my anger go from 0 to 10, my lucid action step would be saying something like, you know what I'm in need of right now? A lovely cup of tea. And would you like one as well? Being able to give myself that break and that space in the connection to recollect myself. Or if things are really bad, even being able to say something like, you know what, I'm gonna go grab us some tea from the store or from the local cafe, and taking myself on a 5 or 10 minute walk to go and do so. If it was something like confidence that you feel like you shy away from in these situations where you're connecting with people from your past, maybe old high school friends or even family members as well, it might be something more simple than an action that involves you even speaking with the other person or going out and do something. It might be something as simple for you as just switching up your physiology. Maybe you notice that you've gone back to being kind of hunched over and making yourself small, not talking as much, not being as engaging in the conversations. So doing things like just taking a big stretch, smiling, lowering your shoulders, removing your tongue from the roof of your mouth, pushing yourself to kind of jump in on the conversation like you're used to these days with the new version of yourself, re-engaging rather than shutting down, or even sharing something that you shared recently when you were in that super confident, fully yourself kind of state of mind. Physiology is a huge part of how we interact in the world. It genuinely creates actual chemical changes in our brains and in our bodies. So if you don't feel comfortable in suddenly switching it up right in front of the people you're with, take 5 minutes to yourself. Go to the bathroom, smile at yourself in the mirror, stand in a power stance, jump around a bit, shake it off. Remember who you are and give yourself a couple of minutes to go over 3 or 5 reasons why you should not be shying away from who you genuinely are. And then you can re-enter the room, re-enter the conversation, fresh, ready. Your emotions will have settled a little bit, and you can get back to being in your right mind, ready to be that full version of yourself. Maybe even able to open up a little bit more about what this experience is doing for you, or what came up in the conversation or during the interaction that made you revert back to feeling angry or small or not worthy. Sometimes the person who was incapable of having those kinds of conversations was the old version of you. And when you're able to bring in the lucid awareness and have the knowledge about the experience that you have today as the person who you've become, the person who you are, you're able and more than capable as the new full version of yourself to take a much more mature approach or take these lucid action steps and actually talk through and resolve some of these issues once and for all. When I was a kid or moody teenager, my mom would ask me particular questions, and I didn't have the capability back then to have a proper conversation with her or express how they made me feel. And so we would just get heated, we would fight. The same thing with some of my older friends. But now, if my mom asks me something and I recognize that it's getting me heated, I have the capability of who I am today, the full version of me, to actually respond and resolve this. 9 times out of 10, I have the capacity to recognize that my mom is not purposefully trying to annoy me or hurt me. But if we can talk through what she said that is annoying or that I feel is demeaning, she can understand my perspective, I can better understand her perspective, and then this cycle doesn't have to happen to us anymore. The person who makes you feel small, shy, unworthy, not confident, may have no idea that they are doing so. And the person from your past that you think you can't talk about these new topics with, or the new way that you're living with, may actually be over the moon to hear about all the new and expansive things that you now incorporate into your life. Just as you might feel like they aren't able to see you for who you are today, are you perhaps doing this to them as well? Do you have them stuck in this bubble of who they were to you 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago? Have they perhaps changed as well? And are you both perhaps feeling a little bit shy to show that person that you've grown into being? And wouldn't it be amazing to find out? When I cover this topic with my students in the Lucid Entrepreneur Lab, the only response that I've ever received is that they're so glad they decided not to shy away from the person that they've become, and that when they were okay about opening up with who they're becoming or even becoming next, the people around them were overwhelmingly supportive and interested. Our minds can be total chaos and a total devil for convincing us that people are going to be judgmental, that no one will care, that everyone will laugh at us. Listen, all the more reason to find out. Either it turns out that you show your full self and then you get the opportunity to remove these people from your life as soon as possible, or chances are they're the total opposite and you get to realize that you were shy and worried and freaking out and feeling anxious over nothing, and you never need to go through that ever again. Step 3 of this process is getting lucid and rehearsing. This is by far one of the most amazing benefits to being a lucid dreamer. Anything that you don't feel fully courageous about doing in the waking state, you can still get to work on this consequence-free in your lucid dreams until you do feel comfortable. Unlimited rehearsal at your fingertips. Maybe you aren't sure about how to confront your friend, how to talk through some of these things. Maybe you have so much built up anger or angst because those triggers have happened in the past so many times. No better place to release all of this than your lucid dreaming space. Look, sometimes there's stuck energy and emotions that we're ready to release, ready to let go of, but not necessarily initially directly with that person. If you get lucid, you can go through a conversation in any given way that you want. You don't need to hold back on anything. You can be fully who you are. And this may be enough to give you that release that you need to then be able to achieve so much more emotionally and have those emotionally stable conversations and connections with that given person in the waking state. Sometimes we're just not sure what it would feel like to be that person that we are today around an old family member or around an old friend or in a large group setting. So why not get lucid and give it a go in that safe, secure space for you first? You get to experience what it feels like when you're lucid instead. And in the lucid dream space, you're aware that you're dreaming, so you don't need to feel shy or weird or uncomfortable because you're totally conscious that this is your dream. When you're able to rehearse, to practice, to go over something, you're actually still forming these new neural connections in your brain, just as you would if you were trying something new or rehearsing something in your waking state. So therefore, if you're able to practice something whilst lucid, it has the same effect as being able to practice it whilst awake. And therefore, it's much, much easier to go and connect with these relationships or have that feeling of being super confident, fully being able to be you, because you've already had a taste of that experience. It's kind of like the first time that you do a speech, right, on stage. You're nervous, and so you'd maybe practice in front of a mirror or practice with a friend or record yourself, something like that. But imagine if you had the opportunity to actually get on the stage that you'd be on and practice in front of a full audience, just like you would for the actual experience, consequence-free, 5 times. 10 times. You'd feel totally prepared for it, totally prepared before doing your waking life speech, right? And that's exactly how this lucid dreaming practice can work for you. You can connect, you can rehearse with dream characters in a way that feels sometimes even more real in your waking life. There's no better way to prepare yourself than this. So to summarize, step 1 is really cultivating that lucid awareness for yourself, bringing consciousness into the situation, surrounding your emotions that are perhaps arising when you're interacting in those particular relationships from your past, ranking the emotions from 0 to 10, really using this to be present, grounding yourself, checking in with where you're at and perhaps what you really need in that moment. Then step 2 is taking that lucid action. If you're off the scale in anger or feeling like you're not at all who you know yourself to truly be, time to give yourself a break and get what you need. Might be a cup of tea, might be a brief walk, might be 5 minutes in the bathroom just to collect yourself and bring yourself back to who you know yourself to be in fullness. You can use this time to check in with your physiology or go over whatever is the next best step for you to make. What would you do if you were lucid? This is a question I commonly ask myself. Or if it feels right, how can I, go back into this conversation and re-enter it even just 1% closer to who I fully am today? Are you perhaps in a better situation in your life or more capable to actually discuss some of these things that are triggering you? And is the other half of this relationship also perhaps a changed person or changed people, and it feels like maybe you aren't recognizing them or their growth either? And wouldn't it be great to find out? Like I said, with my students in the lab, 9 out of 10 times they are so glad that they decided to find out, and they were overwhelmingly pleased when they did decide to share that version of themselves that they've become and receive that incredibly positive feedback and encouragement and interest. And lastly is step 3, get lucid, practice. Lots of people think confidence is something that you either have or you don't. Wrong. Confidence comes with practice. There is no one who is super confident, 100% confident right from the get-go. They're able to gain that confidence because they've had that practice time. Your lucid dreams are a wonderful arena to practice in, where you can be fully who you are, consequence-free. You can rehearse, you can experiment as much as you need, and this practice and rehearsal translates back to your waking state. The neural connections are made, the experience has been tasted, and you'll wake up feeling like you've had that genuine rehearsal of the conversation, and you've seen the way that you'd like it to play out, and so you can hold yourself and share yourself for real. And that's, in a nutshell, 3 super simple steps for how to be fully yourself in all relationships and not revert back to those old versions of you that don't serve you anymore. I hope that during your next family gathering or meetup with old friends, you're able to remember some of these simple steps and put them into practice for yourself. This will really enable you to always feel confident in who you are and stop that continuation of ever needing to shy away from that. Know that who you are, who you became, and who you are becoming is incredible. You've put in the work, you've done it, you are doing it, you're living it. And it would be a disservice to yourself and everyone else who has the pleasure of connecting with you if they or we didn't get to experience you fully. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I would love to hear your thoughts, feelings about which step of this practice you know that you need to put into place for yourself, or how or when you're going to give it a go and what you think that might look like for you. Please comment below, or if you're more of the private type, feel free to message me on Facebook or Instagram. If relationships, emotions, self-development, and expansion and growth in general is something that you are interested in using your lucid dreaming practice for, please DM me or comment below just saying growth today, and I will personally take some time to reach out to you and offer you any resources that might be really useful and can help you with that. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Get Lucid with Lana, for weekly videos on lucid dreaming and lucid living for self-development, entrepreneurial expansion, and transpersonal mastery. I hope you guys are having an amazing Friday, and I wish you a weekend ahead full of big dreams, lucidity, and abundance. Bye.